Should I start preparing the 485 application right now, or should I wait until October of 2021? Emily, now what are we expecting in the visa bulletin of October 2021?
Right, we have been predicting, again, major priority date movement in the October 2021 visa bulletin, just like we saw in October 2020. And that's mainly due to the large number of additional employment-based green cards that should be available. We're expecting 150,000 extra green cards. So we should see priority date movement October 2021. So now would be a great time to start preparing for that.
Emily, what advantages do I get by preparing the 485 in advance rather than waiting until October?
Yeah, you definitely are able to have all of your documents reviewed, all of your immigration history reviewed at this point to make sure that you are properly maintaining status and there are no legal status issues that have come up since you entered the U.S. These can often be found out early and actually have the ability to be corrected. It may involve travel, and so you need to have time to be able to make those corrections before October. If you don't find out there's an issue until October, it may be too late to get that corrected before you have to file.
And if you have issues with the birth certificate, if the date is wrong, if you don't have your name, maybe you can fix it. If you can't fix it, you can try to get an affidavit. You can get it, if the birth certificate is not there, you can try to get a non-availability certificate. You can also try to obtain the I-140 petition in the Freedom of Information, which we're going to give a link at the bottom, so that you can be prepared in advance. Because if you want to get an I-140 petition from the USCIS, it takes about 3 weeks. So if you go into September and you start preparing at that point of time, you may not have enough time to get an I-140 petition directly from USCIS.
Another thing we found was people that filed at the beginning of October versus people that filed at the end of October, the processing times are way different and the receipt notice timelines are way different. So if you are able to prepare your application now, you can have it ready to file September 30th. It gets mailed out in the first batch that reaches USCIS after October 1st. That can be a great advantage in, number one, getting receipt notices, also getting EAD and AP cards approved faster, and then the actual processing of the green card, the biometrics, getting any RFE for missing documents. All of that is sped up if you file earlier in the month versus later in the month.
Emily, also, we know that priority dates always move by next month, though. It's not guaranteed, though. There are situations where priority dates might move in the beginning of the month or in the middle of the month. It has happened a couple of times, especially in 2007, where everything became current, though. The first day, July 1st itself, they said, no, we will not allow people to file. So it may be better people to file on the first day of the month if possible, or maybe first 2 weeks, rather than filing in the last weeks of the month. So that if by any chance the USCIS backtracks or State Department backtracks and pull the date back, then at least their application is ready to be there. Let's discuss about what are the requirements for the 485 application to be filed, Emily. What is that they need to be having to file a 485 application?
Number one, you have to be physically in the U.S. in order to file an adjustment of status. If you're outside the U.S. And thinking your date might be concurrent, you need to make sure that you can get here in order to file.
Is there any 60-day requirement or 90-day requirement that after they come on a non-immigrant visa, they have to wait before they file a 485?
Generally, for most people that would be interested in this topic, you're likely in H-1B, H-4, L-1, and L-2 status, and those are dual intent visas, and therefore you can have the intention of filing the adjustment of status at the time you enter the U.S. You don't have to wait after you enter. You can immediately file the 485, assuming your date is current. To
file the 485 or adjustment of status, you must be maintaining the non-immigrant status, though. If your extension or change of status is pending, though, that is perfectly okay to file the 485 application. As long as the extension or change of status is approved, you're fine. You must also file something called 485J supplement that must be signed by an employer. If you're filing a downgrade application along with the 485, you don't need to file a 485J supplement. But if you're not, you need to file the 485J supplement that need to be signed by the employer. You must have a birth certificate. If you don't, you must have 2 affidavits that says that you've been born, and there are some alternative documents we recommend. I'm going to give a link, but you don't have to get them to file the 485 application, but at least you need to have those birth affidavits. You also need to have a marriage certificate that need to be available, marriage affidavits. If the marriage certificate is not there, you can get the marriage affidavit. With regards to the medical exam though, we do not recommend the people, especially filing in October of 2021, we do not recommend people to file to have a medical exam, because we are expecting, dates may be backlogged a lot depending on how the things go. Medical examination is not a requirement to file the 485. You can always supplement later on, or they may issue an RFE, or they will ask you to bring the medical at the time when you go for the interview. It's always prudent to get the copy of the I-140 petition and the perm approval, which we are going to give a link at the bottom of this video where you can try to obtain that thing.
All right, some of the very common questions that we get regarding this process are related to people who may need to downgrade their I-140. So this is the situation where you have your EB2 approval, but your date is not current in EB2, it's actually current in EB3, and you have the opportunity to take advantage of that difference in dates to file your adjustment of status sooner. So one of the main questions with these downgrade I-140 applications is, should I file that downgrade now when I'm not sure that it'll be current in EB3? Maybe it might end up being current in EB2 and the downgrade is not necessary. Or should I wait until October when I know it's current in EB3 and only do the downgrade at that point?
For all the people whose priority date is anywhere between January 1st of 2015 to about January 1st of 2019, we strongly recommend they do the downgrade application right now, not in September or October though. The main reason for it is it's better to be prepared well in advance rather than preparing at a later date. Emily, if somebody's priority date, let's say is 2017, they file the downgrade application right now. What if the EB2 moves forward? Can they still use the I-140 approval even though you file the downgrade application or your downgrade application is already approved? Can they still file the 485 under the EB2?
Yes, absolutely. It's very important to understand that you're not losing the EB2 approval by downgrading. That's why we don't recommend doing the downgrade as an amended I-140. This is a second I-140 that you're filing to get that second category. And if the first category ends up being better, you can absolutely take advantage of that and file the 485 and EB2, even though you downgraded to EB3.
The expenditure that is involved for filing an I-140 application can be spent either by the employer or employee. Unlike the H-1B and green card application, the perm labor application, only employer can spend the money. In this one, the legal fees and the filing fees can be spent by the employee also. So this is a good advantage for you to take. You tell your employer, look, I will be able to pay the money. Legally, I'm allowed to pay the money, so you can do the downgrade and make it ready for filing the 485 application. Emily, can an employee do the downgrade application without the employer cooperating for the downgrade application?
No, this does require the employer to file the I-140 petition on your behalf. So you need to make sure that your employer is willing to do that. The cost is minimal. The employee can pay for that process. So that's important to point that out to your employer if they're not sure whether they want to proceed with that. But you do need your employer's help that filed the original I-140 in order to downgrade.
Some of the common problems we see when we are filing the 485 application is the birth certificate. That's one of the major problems we see into it is if the birth certificate is a wrong date, do not submit it, discuss with your lawyer. If you don't have it, try to get an affidavit. As we discussed before, we're going to give a link for those things too. If there is any mismatch in the employment dates, for example, if the H-1B says that it's been received on March 13th of 2015 and you start working from the company in February of 2015, so you have a problem there. I mean, you start working before the receipt notice. There are some ways to rectify it. You need to discuss with your lawyer and try to rectify it right now rather than waiting until September to rectify at that point of time. Emily, what are the things if by any chance we are expecting the priority date to become current in October? What if they are unable to file and the priority dates move back? What will happen?
Right. It's very likely that it's going to take much longer for your date to become current again so that you can actually file the 485 application. This kind of situation where we see drastic movements in the dates is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, maybe 2 or 3 times, but we don't expect after this October more big jumps to happen again, because this is just related to the travel bans that have been put in place during the pandemic and during the Trump administration. Those are improving or lifted, and so if you miss this opportunity, it could be decades before you get a chance to file the 485 if you're not able to take advantage this October.
Emily, what if I am the main applicant? I am in United States, but my wife is in India right now. Can I still file the 485 application for myself and add my wife at a later date?
That is possible, but you have to make sure if your spouse is a derivative of your current visa status, once you file the 485, you need to continue to maintain your non-immigrant status at the same time so that your spouse has the opportunity to come in on that derivative visa. Once they're in the U.S., as long as your 485 is still pending, your spouse can then file their 485 and be matched up with your application.
Emily, what does your law firm do to help people in pre-preparing the 485 application?
Yeah, we're actually right now in the process of preparing I-485 applications. All the forms, all of the documents, photographs, everything is being put together for individuals that think that their date might become current in October. We're getting the Supplement J taken care of by the employer and reviewing the birth certificates, reviewing the marriage certificate documents, reviewing the legal status, making sure that there won't be any issues for the 485. We're putting the application completely together now so that when your date becomes current in October, we should find out in mid-September, we'll be ready to go, get it mailed that first week of
Emily,
October.
my priority date is 2018. I don't know whether it's going to be current or not. Why do you have to spend all the money on you to prepare the application where I don't know whether I will be able to file the application or not?
Yeah, I would definitely understand that you're not sure yet whether your date is going to be current. So if you're not sure, we are offering this at a small initial fee for us to prepare this now, and we're not requiring the entire legal fee or even filing fees at this point. We're just preparing everything using a small initial fee, and if the date becomes current, we won't charge anything further. I'm sorry, if the date does not become current. So you're not out all of the money that you would normally be out if you had an attorney prepare everything and then end up not filing.
And when the date becomes current, what do you do then?
Yes, so when the date does become current, we will then send the invoice for the final payment, and the filing fees will be due at that time as well. And once we receive that, we'll file the applications.
Emily, if any of you guys, after listening to this one, you have any questions, though, we do conduct weekly 3 times conference call, and the conference call detail has been provided there in the slides, so you can just check out and ask, what are the terms, what are the things that you'll be going, what are the services that we offer, and what is the timeline to obtain all these things. But before you do that, though, I just want to tell you that if your company is not allowing you to go with the outside lawyers, you may not be able to use our services. So you have to check with your company if they would be okay to use the outside lawyer services in filing the 485 application.
And if you do have any questions, you can always send an email to info@rnlawgroup.com. Just let us know that you have questions about this pre-preparing the adjustment of status, and our team will be able to answer those for you.
Thank you very much.